everyone. Welcome to the Mufasa book reading. My name is Julia, and we are reading from Dr. Tineka Walfer's book, Authentic Leadership Effectiveness. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Why the need for authentic leadership? Not all leadership positions are filled by great and natural leaders. And similarly, one does not have to fill a leadership position in order to be experienced by self and others as a great leader. This implies that there is not always a direct relationship between leadership positions and leaders. Martin Kalungu Banda, in his book Leading Like Madiba, reminds us that the world is in dire need for great leaders, ones who inspire people not through words but by serving them, extraordinary leaders who attend to others and become beacons of hope. He further points out that this is required not only in political contexts but also in business organizations. Whereas people in organizations are often described as human resources, they are much more than that. They are not merely resources that are restricted to the work context. They are human beings of different genders, races, religions, and ages. And what universally extraordinary leaders do is to untie rather than polarize societies and nations. When extraordinary leaders become beacons of hope, they inspire others to be the best they can be as well. The word inspire always reminds me of the word spiritual. Extraordinary leaders are driven by more than just their own egos. They are spiritually informed to consider the well being of all those on whom they are able to have a positive effect. It becomes their life and leadership purpose, as was the case for Wangari Maathai in Kenya and Nelson Mandela, and for Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa, who were all recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize. This chapter looks at the current state of leadership and the consequences thereof, and considers the need for a better quality of leadership and introduces the notion of authentic leadership. It briefly considers what authentic leadership is, the impact that such quality of leadership can have, and important criteria to consider when wishing to develop such leadership in organizations. Until recently, it appeared not to be possible to develop authentic leadership via a program, but this has changed. And this book, therefore, focuses on how such leadership can be developed via an appropriate program. Both Mandela and Tutu, well-known South African examples, are briefly viewed through the lens of authentic leadership. In order to give more meaning to this notion, this chapter concludes by inviting you to engage in an interactive leadership discussion on what the state of leadership is in your organization and your country. Leadership today. True leadership has always been more difficult to maintain in challenging times, but the unique stresses facing organizations throughout a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world today call for a renewed attention to what constitutes true and ethical leadership. These challenges have resulted in renewed focus on how our leaders can restore confidence, hope, and optimism. Leaders need to be agile and resilient and be able to respond appropriately to catastrophic and extraordinary events. Leaders can also help those whom they serve in their search for meaning and connection by fostering new self-awareness. This requires that they genuinely relate to all stakeholders, whether these employees, customers, suppliers, owners, and even communities. This is a big ask, as it requires that leaders need to be the change they wish to see by developing their own self-awareness and understanding what is meaningful to them. I agree with Bill George, well-known author on authentic leadership, when he asserts that there is a need for leaders who lead with purpose, values, and integrity, who build enduring organizations, motivate their staff to provide superior customer service, and who create long-term value for shareholders. When problems surfaced at, for instance, Anderson, Tyco, Transmile, the extent of leadership crisis within organization became apparent, creating a widespread erosion of trust in business leaders. More recently, reputable international organizations such as VW, who have admitted to cheating in emission tests in their diesel cars in the US, received considerable press exposure due to their extreme unethical behavior. George reminds us that what the world is searching for now is a way of leading that is based on character and substance rather than style of leadership, and integrity rather than image or position. In order to equip leaders to rebuild trust and to create compelling futures for themselves and their organizations, we are continually reminded of immensely negative impact of unethical leadership. We see it in we see it daily in the press relating to both political and business dealings. We experience the heartache it creates for us in organizations we work for. We fall foul of it when we buy goods and services from those who only have their own profit in mind. I facilitate leadership development at various financial institutions in South Africa, and I have experienced a strong desire amongst my executive clients to work in a values based leadership culture. A few years ago, international news headlines highlighted that there had been an extreme lack of integrity in the executive leadership of parent company of one of our top financial institutions. This resulted in the immediate resignation of Bob Diamond, the CEO of parent organization Barclays Bank. And even when having to report to the British Parliament, he was accused of prevaricating whilst responding to those questions in Parliament. The impact of such lack of integrity affected not only parent company, but also my client organization, illustrated as follows in a local newspaper. ABSA feels Barclays pain. The woes at ABSA's parent Barclays are also not helping. Barclays chief executive Bob Diamond resigned on Tuesday, followed a few hours later by Bank's chief operating officer, in a deepening scandal over the rigging of a key global interest rates. In my role as authentic leadership development practitioner, I noted how this situation hurt those employees in our local financial institution who had served in their employer for 10, 20, in some cases, even 40 years, many of whom were retrenched in a cost-cutting exercise through no wrongdoing of their own. Personal communication with one of the affected executive employees reminded me once again of the immense impact not only on those employees and their self-worth, which in some instances has led to suicides and attempted suicides, but also on their families. Sadly, more recently, Barclays was once again in the press regarding the Libor rigging scandal. The need for increased positive and moral leadership is not only in response to organizational scandals attributed to poor and unethical leadership, due to the continual pressure often experienced at senior levels in organizations. Many skilled and accomplished executives often feel that they are not good enough, which can have an adverse effect on their self-esteem at the expense of their careers and organizations, and of course, on those who are unlucky enough to report to them. The more senior the leadership position in an organization, the more leaders need to deliver through others. This means that they need to be able to inspire, influence, and empower others to deliver to the best of their ability. It seems to me that so often leaders are promoted in some senior leadership positions due to their previous successes, which are based on their business or technical acumen rather than their leadership skills. Whilst they might have studied for years to prepare them for those previous technical successes, they are often then expected to develop the requisite leadership skills by osmosis and shoulder enormous responsibilities to deliver through others while they are not appropriately equipped to do so. That is where today's reading will end. Thank you so much for joining us in today's book reading. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share to your family and friends. Bye.